You are listening to the Dental C-Suite, the strategic alliance for independent dentists, covering the three pillars of practice success, people, profit, and patience from the Dental C-Suite. Here are your hosts.
Right. Welcome back to the Dental C-Suite. I'm Jessica Beretti, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Hamilton from the Dental Marketing Company and Charlie Beaulieu from Title Accounting. And today, let's talk about new age dentistry and looking beyond the basic roles that dentists would typically hire for. So looking beyond the dental assistants, dental hygienists, and reception positions.
That's a relief that we're talking about HR new age. I thought we were maybe going to shift to like using crystals and and
Holistic
incantations
dentistry.
to holistic dentistry.
Yeah, you might have to pull my teeth to really talk about that. Yeah, I think most dental practice owners, or not most, but some still hire from the same I don't know if we want to call it like a three
Playbook
role
or something.
playbook. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like they learned in school, the front desk position, RDA, RDH. I think that model was built for a different era of dentistry. Um, and I think maybe today's successful practices function more like, or they either do or should function more like small businesses, right? Like we talk about that all the time. And any business needs a diverse team with diverse, varying skills, I think. So, um, yeah. And as an owner, if you're wearing, all the hats outside of clinical care, you know, you might be a little bit of the problem, but might not see it. I don't want that to come
Yeah.
off really harsh, but do you know what I mean?
No,
Absolutely.
exactly. You're so in your business and working in your business, you don't really have time to work on your business and to
Exactly.
pull yourself out and be the CEO of your clinic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to realize too is that, the dentist office that your parents visited or that you visited as a kid is very different from today.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, not only the technology, but I mean the clientels we serve. People really expect customer service now. And nowadays there's so many options for dentistry. Before there was the one dentist in your community, and if you lived in that community, you just went to that dentist. There wasn't really the option. But now the competition is higher. And so you actually have to deliver, good service and good product, and you have to make the patient cared for. You're not surefire to have all the patients in your surrounding 3 kilometer radius anymore. So there's a lot more competition these days, and so I think your organization chart needs to change with that to deliver on that.
Very
Yeah,
much so.
absolutely.
I mean, I come at this not specifically from yes, I grew up in a dental house, but working in small business and startup enterprises for over a decade. And I think I've shared the book before, but the E-Myth, or it's now the E-Myth Revisited as it's been re-released, and how to build your business, how to structure any small business. Can apply to a furniture store, can apply to a tech startup, it can apply to your dental clinic, and how do from the early stages, how do you start thinking like a CEO, start thinking strategically and working on your business so that you don't get stuck just being in your business all the time. One of the key things from the book that I've always used is pretty much from day one, build an org chart, map out all of the different roles that need to get done on a regular basis, map out who they report to. It can be a really flat structure, but once you hit a certain size, and just you can jump in here anytime and tell me I'm wrong.
I would never.
You're gonna need to have some hierarchy, like who's responsible for who and what, and and map that out. And, in the early stages, you might find that your name as the founder, as the dentist, is filling a whole bunch of those roles, but at least it gives you some vision. In a year's time, I need to find somebody to do this, the bookkeeping, so that I don't have to do it, or my partner, spouse, wife, whatever, husband isn't the bookkeeper at the end of their day job. I'm going to need somebody who can answer phones. I'm going to need somebody who can manage the offices. And if you're going to a multi-clinic setup, then you're going to need people who can compile all the information, who can put together your reports for you. So yeah, there's way more to operating a business these days than just a receptionist, a hygienist, an assistant, yourself.
I think it's also important to realize too is that this org chart document that you mentioned, Kyle, that it's something that should be living and change.
Yeah.
Even like within my own business, like I don't specifically have an org chart. I probably should. So I'm actually going to get on that this weekend. But there's many times where I have like notes on like, okay, this could be something. This could be a job. This could be a role that somebody kind of owns. And I think that's something that operationally, as you found something, you start to develop like, okay, I could kind of package this into its own role that they could handle this section of the business and kind of really own that. And, having lived it as being the dentist, you'll know what you want to see in that position. And I think that's also important in owning your own business, is that you don't hand off everything right away, because there is some level of understanding that you need to have as to what goes into that. And that's something that will get lost as you get older in your business and, the years go by. Things change that you don't even see that other staff members are dealing with, your treatment coordinator, your finance coordinator, or go into all the other coordinator positions. The things evolve and change for them that you as the dentist don't see because you handed that off, years ago. So it's also important to kind of loop your staff back into that and say, like, what's changed since I handed you this role 2 years ago. I think you'd be surprised.
For sure. I'd like to remind, just on that point, I'd like to remind business owners that, like, I like what you said, Charlie, don't hand everything off too early, because then you kind of just remove yourself completely. And it's not from a healthy angle either. But I like to remind business owners, you want to be able to just kind of sit back, do what you want to do, and have the right people in the right places to run your business. But you also want to be involved still. So you want to understand every role that's happening, what's going on in the business, so that
Absolutely.
you're not totally removed completely.
Yeah.
No, and go ahead, Kyle.
I was just saying, if you think of yourself as the CEO, you need to understand all the different roles. You need to delegate a lot of work, because there's just not enough hours in the day for you to do everything. But if you start out getting a sense of the job, you build some standard operating procedures and expectations, and delegate that out. Exactly as Charlie said, those are going to evolve as time progresses and as technology changes, and personal tastes change. All sorts of things are going to evolve. But having had that initial experience, you understand better what's involved, and you can then support and resource your team better. You know what, when they're asking you for something, if it's a reasonable expectation, or if it's well and truly out to lunch. So yeah, it's building the org chart. And the question that the E-Myth really kind of hammers home, and I'm not sure if it's that book or another one of the books that I've read over my time as an entrepreneur, is, are you trying to build a business, or are you trying to build yourself a job? Because they're two very different constructs. If you're just trying to build yourself a job, then be the one and only person who does everything. You've got some pretty solid job security. But if ultimately you're trying to build an asset that you can sell in the future, you need to think like a business. You need to build this as a business that can operate completely separate from you. You can take a month off and go to Mexico, go to Hawaii, whatever, go skiing in the Alps, and you know that the business is going to run smoothly without you being there in the day to day.
And I think it's actually one really important thing to note here is, and I don't know the actual data on this, but I'm going to suspect that 80 to 90% of businesses are businesses that are built as a job, not as a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think that you fall into that category of I own a business and this is an asset, I challenge you to take a hard look in the mirror, and if that's actually true. Like, could you tomorrow run away to Italy or Europe or wherever, and actually your business would survive?
And that's exactly
really
the test. Yeah,
Yeah.
is next Monday, just call your front desk and say, right, I'm out of the country for 2 months or 2 weeks. Let's start a little bit smaller. And is everything going to fall apart in that time? Or are you still going to be generating revenue, or is your clinic going to be functioning? That's a great way to test the waters, to determine, do you have a job or do you have a business?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I'm going away for 3 days, and I'm not prepared. So I'm still very much in the job stage of this thing.
Me too. Me too.
Like, I gotta take notes here because this is really good for my business. Yeah.
No, exactly. So listeners, don't worry. We're in the same boat. Listen to us.
Do as I say, not as I do, I think is what I tell my children.
We're trying to do the exact same thing as what we're trying to tell our listeners. So
now, we started off just by you kind of talking about being more to the RDA, more than the RDH, more than the receptionist. In your HR observations, like, what are some of these other job titles that you're finding starting to appear more and more in clinics?
Well, a treatment coordinator, and that's not a totally new one, but not all clinics have a treatment coordinator, and I think they should, really. Treatment coordinator or a patient experience coordinator, that's one that I'm noticing quite a bit. Those positions help bridge clinical recommendations and patient decisions. So they're a key role. Not just scheduling. They're actively presenting treatment plans to patients. Like, they're sitting down with patients individually, outside of the dental chair, and they're handling any objections that patients have, and they really, I think, kind of build trust. So that's and they have a huge impact on case acceptance rates. I don't know, Charlie could probably speak on that more on the numbers, but I do find that role makes a big difference. Office manager or an operations manager. I like the term operations manager, and I think Stephanie Richardson, I think she called it something like, did she say operations manager? I can't remember. She had a really good term for when she was on our
I can't recall what it was either.
But I think, like, if you phrase it, I have to go back and to my notes and remember what she said. But something like an operations manager, phrasing it like that, employees respond better to than an office manager. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic. That's something I'm seeing a lot in clinics now. Having an actual insurance and billing specialist, someone that knows insurance really well. Sometimes even like a practice growth coordinator, I guess you could call it. But this is where I would maybe start to advise owners to outsource these sort of things. So outsource your marketing, like, to someone like Kyle Hamilton from the Dental Marketing Company, and outsource outsource your HR, people management, and outsource your accounting, those kind of things. So you don't have to have them in-house, but have someone that you utilize regularly for those services.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Charlie, but just to kind of build off the idea of outsourcing versus internal, and when you're building your org chart, especially earlier on, you don't need to hire everybody internally. Like Charlie can back me up, but from an accounting and profitability perspective, when you outsource, sure, the per hour rate might be higher than what you're paying somebody as an hourly wage or a salary, but it's only billed on the hours that you're used. You don't have that set overhead. So, you could pay 25, 30% more per hour, but it actually ends up costing you half as much over the course of the year because you don't need them full time. Maybe you only need that role 10 hours a week or even 10 hours a month. So considering what fits best for your needs, and I come back to this org chart idea and listing out the roles and listing out the duties and functions that they've performed, you then know what you need. It's a lot easier to look at a glance and determine, okay, now I need to hire somebody internally. It makes more sense for us to bring this in-house, or it makes more sense to outsource this. So, yeah.
No, you're
Absolutely.
exactly right there, Kyle. I want to touch on your point, and I want to go back to your point about the treatment coordinator. So, Kyle, I'll answer your thing there first, because it is imperative that you look at that outsourcing, because on an annual basis, 100%, it's probably cheaper. For example, hiring me to do just the bookkeeping and accounting will almost always be way cheaper than actually bringing a bookkeeper as an employee onto your corporation to have them come in for 10 to 12 hours a week. Yes, their hourly wage might be lower than mine, but the annual cost, I can almost guarantee I'll beat that. And I think that would be the same thing, in marketing and HR and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, if you're in a single clinic, structure, you don't need that dedicated time to have an HR person come in, every Tuesday from 9 till 2 or something like that. Because inadvertently also too, you don't dedicate that time to have HR availability. So you're in the middle of clinic. You don't get the conversation with them that you should have. You need to have that flexibility that, okay, it's now Thursday. I have a bit of free time. I'm going to send that email to my HR person or my marketing to have the discussion that I've had thoughts on. Not that, okay, my HR person is on next Tuesday. I'll wait till then. You forget about it. You don't make time. You didn't block your schedule, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it is really important that, looking at, and I know the cool word of these roles lately is these fractional roles, fractional CFO and fractional HR and all that stuff. So, yes, I'm a fractional CFO and Cal's a fractional marketer, but we, you kind of get that big picture thinking without the big picture costs. And then Jessica, back to you on the treatment coordinator. It's so important. And that's one thing that's really, that I saw from operational standpoint is, if you're running a $2 million a year practice, which is, most clinics these days is, in that $1.8 to $2.5 million range for a single owner operator clinic. If out of that, you're operating between 65 and 73% being dental production, the dentist doing the work, that's approximately $1.2 to $1.4 million worth of work that you're producing. Should you not have somebody in charge of making sure that that amount of money is actually being delivered properly? Because at the same time too, if you're operating that at an 80%, treatment acceptance rate, there was another, what would that be? $1.7 million, $1.8 million in work that you tried to produce, right, but wasn't accepted. So making sure that you have a treatment coordinator in there to actually follow up on the treatment that you prescribe to patients is imperative, because at the end of the day, nobody likes dentistry. I might be told that I have a filling, but if I don't have pain and I'm not followed up with, I'm probably not going to come back until it's painful and it's now a root canal. And that's where that treatment coordinator can really kind of come in and, not so much harp on the fact that it's needed, but just be that, that sounding board that, hey, we should do this before it's a root canal and then it's $2,500
Mhm.
and or more, and just being able to have those conversations. And a lot of times too, sometimes they're seen as that soft middle ground between the dentist. They're that, you got the bad news from the dentist. Now here's the treatment coordinator that's going to like kind of make everything right in the world again from
Yes.
the financial side and understanding and say, okay, I understand I need that, but I know this stuff ain't free. So they really do help bridge that gap in a lot of situations where some people, um, like myself, I don't like doctors. They make me nervous. So sometimes I need that soft, gentle hand to help me kind of like, no, you need this. You're good. We'll get you scheduled in. And I know that's an oxymoron. I work with dentists for a living, but but yeah,
But oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
but yeah, no, I have diagnosed white coach syndrome. So yeah, it's
Well,
but
what I was going to add in there is, having this treatment coordinator, having these other roles, they also help with your branding. They also help with your
yeah,
marketing. And, if someone walks out of your clinic feeling, oh, that dentist is just trying to make money, pay for his next Maserati, and, that's why he's quoting me thousands of dollars for braces for my kid who's only 8,
Mm.
hasn't even hit puberty yet or anything, something like that. Having that coordinator position there can soften that. And if that person leaves saying, oh, okay, this is why they want to start putting in spacers now, or this is why they want to move this forward now, as opposed to wait till, the toothache requires a full root canal, they're not going to be out in the community saying, oh yeah, that dentist, no, he just went straight to the most expensive treatment possible for me just to try and make money. They care, and I'm gonna go back there. I'm gonna suggest to my friends or family that I talk to that actually I think this is a great clinic. They gave me the bad news, but then they softened it, and I feel comfortable with their diagnosis and their treatment plan. So yeah, you should maybe go check them out yourself. And
yeah,
like all of these little touch points, they're what really make or break your brand. A lot of dentists focus on Google reviews, but Google reviews are only one sliver of the review spectrum, and
they
there's a
get you in the
lot of,
door.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's what might help you show up on a search online, but it's not going to help you show up in a chat at the coffee shop or at the local moms group or wherever. So
Yeah.
yeah, thinking much beyond the regimented, this is the box that role fits in. Um, what else can they do to support my business? And again,
It's a good
it's
way. Yeah.
the mindset of a CEO versus someone who's just got a good paying job.
Totally, 100%. I mean, you think about it too, like as a dentist, how much time when you go in for a checkup, how much time are you spending with that patient? Likely not a lot because you're there to do the checkup and then you're going back to your restorative room to continue on with the bridge that's being prepped or the filling that's being prepped, right?
Yeah,
So patients are only talking to you for how many minutes, if that kind of thing. And so the patients you leave the room as a dentist and the patient's like, well, now I have all of this to do. And then if it's the hygienist that's in there doing the cleaning or the assistants that's with them, they don't have time to be explaining everything either. And so after that appointment, you sit them down with the treatment coordinator in a separate room, and the treatment coordinator can just, you know, go through everything at a nice, calm speed with them. And they understand the treatment coordinators typically understand insurance too, right? So they can explain the whole insurance aspect, or if there's payment plans that an office has implemented, they can explain that to the patient. And like you said, it just eases you know, creates a nice, comfortable environment for the patient then.
no,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's also important too in these new positions and this new age of stuff is making sure that people have the time to focus on these areas. Because if you have a receptionist, the classic position that is expected to do everything, are they really able to do everything well, or are they just doing everything enough to survive the day? I think that's another really big important part. Treatment coordinator is a big workflow. You have to make sure that the insurance, the pre-authorizations are sent off in a timely manner with all the relevant information, be it x-rays, doctor explanation, historical records, et cetera, et cetera. That needs to be done properly. If you miss that, you delay treatment options by weeks, if not months. So that has to be done properly from the get-go. There's other things too, and following up on payments. Talking about payment plans, talking about potential third-party financing and what that looks like. Obviously, scheduling. If it's a big procedure that requires multiple appointments over the course of certain weeks apart, because maybe we're doing implants, we need to make sure that we do the implant at this time and do the the actual bone graft at a time before, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of points that if it's not done well, doesn't deliver good services and doesn't make the patient feel cared for. But also too, if you can have a specialist that there's just a great salesperson, they can have great conversations with staff or with patients and make them feel welcome and make them feel heard and seen, then your conversion rate's going to instantly go up because of that, rather than the receptionist who's got 3 phone calls on hold and I need to try and make this sale as quickly as possible because I don't want to get yelled at on the phone if they wait for 1 more minute.
Exactly.
And it's just sign here. And so, being able to have that specialization within the office will routinely deliver better results within each position, and ultimately deliver better service, better branding for now and for the future.
It's funny, like everybody always talks about efficiency. We need to drive more efficiency, and for a lot of people that means like making more with less or doing more with less. But when you're in a service-based business like dentistry, where it's a lot of relationship building and it's a lot of communication, sometimes you actually have to spend money to make more money. Adding that one more person, whether it's a treatment coordinator, whether it's some other role, but allowing, as you're saying, Charlie, like allowing people to do what they're specialist in or what they're really good at and just focus on that. You probably don't need 10 more new patient inquiries a month. You probably need 1 more treatment plan conversion a month, or whatever those numbers actually are for your clinic. And getting more conversion is going to do so much more for your long-term business viability and success than just trying to increase the number of new patients coming in the front door.
So Kyle, this might be fighting words.
I'm ready.
So, and I think you kind of alluded, so I think you're going to agree with me. But the biggest thing too is if you brought in a treatment coordinator or even like a hygiene coordinator, and they were able to fix your treatment acceptance rate by even 7 to 10%, increase it, and hygiene coordinator, they were able to increase your recare rate by 7 to 10%. That would pay for the position and would outweigh any new patient that you're going to bring in for the month. So you don't need the marketing, just hire the position. There's my fighting words.
Now you left me a little flabbergasted.
Right, let's have it. Yeah.
because
Tell
I
us how you
agree.
really feel, Charlie.
Because I agree. There is a lot to be said for maybe you don't need more, better, whatever marketing. You need better internal conversions. It's way cheaper, way more efficient to convert a warm lead than it is to try and attract a cold lead.
Agreed.
Having said that, you still need to look at your churn rate. You still need to look at, you do still need new patients coming in.
Absolutely.
But where's that tipping point? And that's something that's going to be unique for each clinic. And that's something that's worth bringing in a Charlie from an accounting perspective to run those numbers. Look at how if you just marginal increases in conversions can have outsized impacts in profitability. Like I think of when I run an email campaign for not necessarily in a dental space, but in other industries where, you've got a conversion rate that could be like in the 3 to 5% range. And so, if your conversion rate on an email campaign is 3% and that's generating $100,000 of revenue, if you increase that conversion rate by 1%, you're actually now suddenly sitting at $130,000 of revenue. If you increase that by 3%, you've just doubled your revenue. So like it really does start to become a numbers game. And yes, you do need a certain scale for these numbers to work, but it shows how those small incremental changes could have an outsized impact on your financial bottom line.
No, agreed. And I think, you know, to come back on this too, is that if you fix some of those internal systems for the recare rate and treatment acceptance, that also fixes the branding as well. I mean, not so much fixing, but it helps the branding, which
it improves, certainly.
in turn brings its own new patients in because the word of mouth becomes easier, and quite honestly saves money on marketing too.
Yeah.
So if people are more naturally bringing people in there because they have high praises to sing about you as a clinic, of course they're going to share you with their friends and family. Say like, hey, I go see this dentist, and I'm always impressed every time I'm in there. Everything's explained well. I feel cared for and heard, and my crown hasn't fallen out yet. So
yeah. Yeah, no, it very much does become a function of how much marketing do you actually need to do and how much you just need to tidy up some of your processes. I'm not going to say you don't need a website, or you shouldn't
still
be
absolutely
doing
need a website.
shouldn't be doing doing some SEO to try and ensure that you're showing up in search results for new people to the community or whatnot. But it's maybe not it's maybe not your marketing that's the problem. And I see this all the time with inquiries, with clinics coming to me being like, yeah, I've been working with an agency, and we're getting 10 new inquiries, 20 new inquiries a month, but I'm not seeing any impact to my bottom line. Well, that for me is a bit of a tell that, okay, maybe it's not the agency's fault. Maybe there's something internal that needs to get fixed first.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it goes back to the basic, like a well-run clinic. If your clinic is run well, patients will notice, and they catch on very quickly, and then they'll talk about it, right?
Yeah.
The other thing, I have to, I'm so sorry from an HR perspective, you're talking about there might be some underlying issues, right? We talk about these roles that people are adding into clinics, like these more modern roles, I guess. You can't just throw anyone into those roles. You got to make sure it's the right person, right? And that goes back to what you're saying, Kyle. There might be some underlying issues there with, whether it's your processes or maybe just not the right people in the right positions, or they haven't been trained properly. So I guess what I want to get across is that, we're talking to owners and saying, consider adding these roles in to elevate your practice, but don't just, have these roles and throw someone into them. Make sure they're needed for your clinic. These roles are going to benefit your clinic, and it's the right people in those roles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if it's something that you're considering, call Jess. Like have her do a bit of an audit on your HR functions and determine if she sees that it's going to be a benefit to you, or call Charlie, get him to kind of run an audit of your business and see what makes financial sense. Again, this is where the idea of the fractional role, or an outside consultant or contractor can have value. Like, sure, maybe you don't need a full-time treatment coordinator because of the size of your practice, but you might want to bring somebody in once a week, kind of thing. So, sorry, my cat was jumping on my desk there and about to walk across the laptop.
All
You
good.
know, audits are a really good idea though, right? Like it's simply to help practices out. I think all three of us probably do that fairly
Yeah,
regularly for clinics, right? And
Yep.
other industries too.
I always run a website audit on anybody who wants one. It's free for a start. Like I will happily audit your website and let you know some things that I think can get fixed, which will help with SEO and search performance, AI views, whatnot. But yeah, doing an audit gives you a baseline starting point of, okay, well, this is where I'm at, and this is what I can work on in the next 12 months.
Exactly.
Oh,
Because like we say it all the
exactly.
time, every clinic is different. So not everyone needs the same help, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
100%.
exactly. No, and I mean, to add to that too as well, Kyle, like I do free financial audits for potential clients. Like if you want to have your financials looked at to see what potential opportunities exist, that's free of charge. And so sometimes it gives you the information you need without even having to hire us. If you're savvy enough in some of these areas, but sometimes just having that second set of eyes on things can be helpful, because sometimes
Yeah.
you get into that tunnel vision of everything's okay, but it's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I am missing 10% here, and 10% actually would be really
Yeah.
nice.
Really
And
nice, yeah.
and it's a low hanging fruit. I just got to fix up something really simple and redo this, and it should be a lot better. So yeah, sometimes those second set of eyes is really helpful.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
mean, I'll emphasize that again. Like in my own business, I had somebody take a quick look at my financials, and all they did was reorganize my profit and loss statement.
Mm.
And it instantly showed me that for every dollar I was making in this one revenue category, it cost me $2 to produce it. So like I was losing money every single time I took on one of these jobs, and I thought they were my most profitable area. But it was just, how they were showing me how I was allocating things and aligning things
Yeah.
wasn't actually the best way to do it. And since that time, my revenues turned around almost 10x. And my profitability's turned around almost 10x. So I'm doing less work, I've got less stress, but I'm more profitable. And as a business owner, that's what we all want, isn't it?
100%.
Exactly.
It's to just take someone outside of your business coming in and looking at things from a different angle. And yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for our listeners, if you're something to think about, if you're a practice owner, you're listening to this episode here, think about how many of the roles that we've talked about that that you currently have. And it's is there one role maybe that you wish you would if you'd hired sooner maybe. And um but maybe more importantly, are you still doing the tasks, all these tasks yourself that someone else could could own instead of you? And I think that's the question that every owner probably needs to answer honestly,
Yeah.
like you talked about right away, Kyle, at the beginning. um so think about that. So, and some of these roles that we talked about, it really is about giving you, the owner, permission to just step back from total complete operations and trust your team. So
Hmm.
yeah, something to think about.
Absolutely.
Very much.
All
Well,
right, well, anything else to add, guys?
no, I think that's
I think that was a great conversation. And
yeah,
I
I agree.
think I hope our listeners go away from this episode and, jot down some notes, build yourself a bit of an org chart and think about what roles you currently have in your clinic and who's doing them, put names beside them, and then think about how you might be able to streamline that or make it better for you as the business owner to do the things that you love. Because that's why we become business owners is we invest a lot of time, energy, and put a lot of risk out there for a reward. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, that reward isn't crushing out 80, 100-hour work weeks and
Yeah,
being in my chained to my desk or chained to my chair to be doing work all the time.
yeah,
So
that's definitely not the
No,
end goal.
exactly.
or even the short-term goal. That's
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
absolutely. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, as always, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Talk to you guys
Perfect.
next time.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Dental C-Suite. For show notes or to ask a question to the board, visit www.thedentalcsuite.com.